Howdy y'all, this is Melody from the bucket. The tune bucket, that is. Today we're going to talk about how to read a chord chart. Whether you play the guitar, or the organ, or the piano, or whatever instrument you did along, we're going to show you what chord to play. So the song example that I have today for you is Amazing Grace, and I've just written up a chord chart of one way that you can play this song. Of course, you can play Amazing Grace so many different ways. There are so many different progressions you can add to the song. This is just one variation that I've written up. I don't know if you can see this or not. There we go. Amazing Grace. So when you see just an F chord like this, that means everyone who plays a musical instrument other than obviously a drum instrument isn't going to have a tone to it, an F tone. But any other instrument, whether it's bass, guitar, piano, organ, strings, ukulele, violin, whatever instrument it is, that instrument needs to be playing some sort of an F, whether it's just an F note or the actual F chord. Now, keep in mind, if your chord chart says F, you can only play an F major. You can't play an F minor. That will clash with the chord because you'll be playing an A flat if you're playing a minor, and the rest of the team will be playing an A, and that's what it's going to sound like. So make sure you're playing an actual F chord, F major. The next chord you see is an F over A. Now, you'll notice that, can you see that? You'll notice that we have a chord on the left, or a note on the left, and then a note on the right. Now, this gets especially confusing for my guys. I don't have any girls right now that play guitar bass, but my guys that play guitar and bass, because I'm thinking of one in particular. He mainly plays guitar, and I've taught him that he looks at the left side. That's what the guitar would play. That's the main chord. Right here over Grace would be F. That would be what the right hand of the keyboard would play. The right hand of the organ would play. Probably most of your instruments on a split chord are going to play what's on the left side if you have a left and right side of the chord. Sometimes you'll see a chord and it may be F and then a line over an A, and the A may be on the bottom. It's the same chord, but this way of notating seems to be a little more confusing for people, so I wanted to explain that today. So if it was an F on top and an A on bottom, obviously your right hand would play the top. Any strings would play the top, your organ right hand would play the top, your guitar would play the top, and then your bass is what's going to play the bottom, your bass guitar. Okay, so your guitar would play what's on the left, if we're talking a left and a right chord like that. The bass would play what's on the right. So the bass player is going to play an A, and then your guitar player would play the F. Now, a keyboard player, that's going to be a split chord for them. So their right hand would play the F. I'll show that to you again while we're talking about it. The right hand would play the F, and the left hand would play an A. So this is what it would look like. You're coming from an F chord to an F over A. Try it again. Okay, so let me explain that one more time. When you have a split chord, a left and a right chord, like this F over A right here, That means that the right hand of all your keyboard instruments is going to play the F chord. Now for my guitar players, they're not to the level where they play split chords yet, so I just have them play the F. If you're advanced enough to play an F over A on the guitar, go for it. I know that it's possible, but I don't play the guitar, so I couldn't show you how. I could just tell you to do it. And once again, your bass player is going to play the A, or the bass note. Now, if you're an organist and you are playing the foot pedals, I would only play the foot pedals if I didn't have a bass player. So if you're playing the foot pedals, you would play the A with your foot pedal. That would be the bass note. And then I would play my right hand playing an F chord, and then my left hand playing an A note or an A octave. That would be the simplest way to do it. So once again, your bass note is going to be on the right hand side, and then your upper notes, your chord, is actually going to be on the left hand side. So the next chord is a B flat major 9. When you see that, I know it kind of looks a little bit like hieroglyphics. What that means basically is that we have to play some sort of B flat chord. So your bass player, all he really needs to know, he or she needs to know, is that they're playing a B flat note. That's all that they need to know about that. They play a B flat note. Now basically, you can get away with playing just a B flat triad in your right hand and have all of your other instruments in your band just play a B flat. That's the basic chord that we're looking at, is a B flat. If you know how to play the major 9, you can do that. Okay, and then the next chord is an F chord. We've already talked about that. On the second line over saved, a D minor 11. Now it's important to note that this does say D minor. It's not D11, it's D minor. Make sure you do pay attention to whether the chord is major or minor. So if it says D minor 11, well, oh my goodness, I don't know what a D minor 11 is. It's okay. But make sure that if you're just going to play a triad, that you're not playing a D major chord. You don't want to play D, F sharp, A. You want to make sure you're playing D, F, A, because that's what makes it a minor. This is a major, minor. You want to make sure you're at least playing a minor. Okay? And then your guitarists will also need to make sure they're playing a minor, not a major chord. If they're playing bar chords, I think that the third is normally left out of a bar chord, so they should be okay. But if they are playing all the notes of a D minor chord or a D chord, we need to make sure that that third is minor. And then your bass player, once again, is only going to be concerned with the D, because he's just playing, or she, I say he, because we have all he bass players. But if you have a she bass player, they're just going to be concerned with the D. The next chord is a G7. So that means everybody's going to play a G. Piano, organ, guitar, they're going to play a G. Bass is going to play a G note. If you know how to add the 7th to that chord, you can do that. But the basic triad of a G7 is just a G major chord. Then we go to a C suspended over Mi to a C. Now, when you play a suspended chord, you want to make sure that all of your musicians are playing a suspended chord. When I work with other teams, I always make sure to emphasize it really matters more that we're all doing the same thing than it does if one person is doing it right and the other ones are not. So if your organ is playing a C suspended really loud, but the rest of your team is only playing a C chord, it may cause a little bit of tension there musically. So if the rest of the team doesn't know what a suspended chord is, we can either A, teach it to them, or B, not blee, B, we can all play just the major chord. Because if you're playing a suspended chord, a C suspended, it's going to sound like this. So if somebody's playing the major chord, you have 3 notes right here that can cause some tension. See? And suspended chords aren't hard, so that may be something new that you can teach to your team really quick and they can all learn. So the chord resolves from a C suspended to a C. So as a band, we need to all play that together. We need to play the suspension together and then resolve it together. Because if we're not resolving it at the same time, if some are doing it quicker than others, again, it's going to cause some sort of musical tension there. Okay, on I Once, we're playing a C minor 7. And you want to make sure and pay attention to the fact that it is a C minor. Hopefully you answered that in your head before I gave you the answer. It is a C minor 7, not a C7. So, this is what a C7 would sound like. C minor 7. It's a totally different sound. So if someone's playing a C7, someone's playing a C minor 7, it clashes. Just make sure, even if you're just playing a triad, like I said before, make sure everyone's playing a C minor instead of a C major. Because if not, it's going to cause some tension there. Then we go to an F over A. Once again, your right hand is going to play the F chord. Your guitars are going to play the F chord. Left hand is going to play the A. Bass is going to play the A. And if you're on the organ, then your foot pedal would also play the A. Same thing with the G2 over B. Your right hand is going to play the G2. Your guitars will play a G2. Organ would play a G2 with the right hand. Strings would play G2. Now the thing about 2 chords is you can, I think, get away with some people playing a 2, some people not. You just kind of have to really play that one by ear. Because a G2, to me, doesn't really resolve like a suspended chord does. And so just adding the 2 to that may make it sound prettier. So you can probably get away with like the keyboard player playing a 2, even if the other instruments don't know what a 2 is. But it'd be nice if they all played the same thing. And then your bass player is going to play the B. So again, if you have a guitar player transitioning to bass, it's going to be kind of a challenge for them to remember which side to play. So you may want to circle or highlight that for them or have them do it. Because if they're playing guitar, they're going to be looking at the left side or the left side. This is your left. This is my right, your left. And then if they're playing bass, they're going to be looking at the right side. That's the bass note. So a G2 over B. Piano, play G2 in your right hand, B in your left hand. Okay. Then we have another B flat major 9, and then a C11. So for C11, we know it's not minor because it doesn't say minor, it just says C11. If you just need to play a basic chord, you can play a C chord if you're not sure what an 11 is yet, and then your bass will also play a C note. All right, last line, we have a C sharp diminished 7. If you're playing a diminished chord, you really can't substitute that with a major or a minor chord. You kind of really need to play the diminished. Diminished chords aren't hard to learn. They're very simple. So I would go ahead and learn what a diminished 7 was and play that. And your C sharp diminished 7 just means your bass player would focus on the C sharp. So your bass player would play a C sharp note, and then everyone else would play a C sharp diminished 7. Now, make sure that you're playing a diminished 7, a fully diminished 7, and not a half diminished 7. And I won't go into teaching you chords in this video because it's not really the purpose of this video, but study it out and make sure that you know the difference between a diminished 7, which is just the circle 7, and a half diminished 7 is going to be a circle with a line through it and a 7. And those are two different chords, and it's important to know the difference because you can't play both at the same time. Everybody has to play the same diminished chord. All right, the next chord is a D minor 7. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see D minor 7? D minor is what you need to focus on. Everybody at the least needs to be playing a D minor. It has to have the flat third in there. Nobody can play a major chord. It has to be a D minor chord. If you can play a D minor 7, that's wonderful. Your bass player obviously is just playing one note, and that note's going to be a D, yes. And then the rest of the song are chords that we've already covered. So I just want to reiterate to focus on when you see a chord like this B flat major 9 right here, just focus on the basic triad of the chord to determine what to play. So a B flat major chord is what this chord is. And then once again, when you see a split chord like this, the left side is what your right hand or the guitar would play, and then the right side, where the A is, would be what the bass player would play, or your left hand. And if you're an organ player and you're playing the foot pedals, remember, only play the foot pedals. Have I really been gone? I have been talking for 19 minutes. Whoa, wow, okay. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Your bass player would play what's on the right, or if you are an organ player and you do not have a bass player, please remember, only play the foot pedals if you don't have a bass player. And here's why. You can't see this on the screen, but if I'm playing two different bass notes, it just sounds like some sort of construction machine or something. It can sound really off, and that's one of those sounds that your congregation or the audience, they may not have a musical ear, but they can tell you something is not right. So don't play the bass pedals on an organ unless you do not have a bass player. Or, hold on. Don't play a bass run with your hand with real bassy tones, or try to do any type of bass runs with your left hand on the organ if you have a bass player. Once again, you're kind of fighting for that sound, and your bass player is going to carry like the foundation of your music. Your bass player and your drummer work together to carry the foundation of your music. So as an organ player, it's really important to stay in your part of the band. I tell my crew this: if there are 5 people playing instruments, then you have to divide 100% of the music by 5, and that's 20%. So each musician is going to play 20%. If I was playing the organ all by myself, I would have 100% of the music, and I could just flow with it and have at it, do whatever I needed to do. But the more instruments you add, the less you need to play. Otherwise, it can get chaotic really, really quick. I hope this helps you today. And if you have any questions that you would like answered on Tuning Tuesday, feel free to email those to us at our email address, which is info@thetunebucket.com. Stay tuned. I hope this helps you today, and if anyone... Tongue-tied. Okay. That doesn't make sense. Whatever. I don't know why I said that. Okay. 22 minutes of jabbering. Have I really been talking 22 minutes about chord charts? Oh boy, I am so sorry. I am so very, very sorry.